system, religious system of the world, but as the state religion of an independent and sovereign power. And as the Baha'i Faith permeates the masses of the people of the East and the West, and its truth is embraced by the majority of the people of a number of the sovereign state of the world, will the Universal House of Justice attain the plenitude of its power and exercise as a supreme organ of the Baha'i Commonwealth all the right duties and responsibilities incumbent upon the world future super state. Word of Baha'u'llah, page 6 and 7, in quotations. Continuing quotations. Some form of a world superstate must needs evolve, in whose favor all the nations of the world will have willingly ceded every claim to make war, certain rights to impose taxation, and all right to maintain armament, except for the purpose maintaining internal order within their respective dominions. Such a state will have to include within its orbit an international executive adequate to enforce supreme and challengeable authority on every recalcitrant member of the Commonwealth. A world parliament whose member shall be elected by the people in their respected countries, and whose election shall be confirmed by their respected government. Supreme Tribunal, whose judgment will have a binding effect, even in such cases where the parties concerned did not voluntarily agree to submit their cases to its considerations. A world community in which all the economic barriers will have been permanently demolished, and the interdependence of capital and labor definitely recognized, in which the clamor of the religious fanaticism and strife will be forever stilled, in which the flame of the racial animosity will have finally been extinguished, in which a single code of the international law, the product of the considered judgment of the world's federated representative, shall have as its sanction the instant and correct and coercive interventions of the combined forces of the federated units. Finally, a world community in which the fury of a capricious and militant nationalism will have to be transmuted into an abiding consciousness of a world citizenship. Such indeed appears in its broadest outline the order anticipated by Baha'u'llah, an order that shall come to be regarded as the fairest fruit of a slowly maturing age. World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 40 and 41. He further illustrates, quote, the unity of the human race as envisaged by Baha'u'llah implies establishment of a world commonwealth in which all nations, races, creeds, classes are closely and permanently united, in which the autonomy of its state member and personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. These commonwealths must, as far as we can visualize, It consists of a world legislatures whose members will, as the trustees of the whole of mankind, ultimately control the entire resources of all the component nations and will enact such laws as shall be required to regulate the life, satisfy the needs, and adjust the relationship of all races and people. A world executive backed by an international force will carry out the decisions arrived at and supply and applied the laws enacted by these world legislatures and will safeguard the organic unity of the whole Commonwealth. A world tribunal will adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict in all and any disputes that may arise between the various elements constituting this universal system. A mechanism of a world intercommunications will be devised embracing the whole planet, freed from national hindrances and restrictions, and functioning with a marvelous swiftness and perfect regularity. A world metropolis will act as the nerve center of a world civilization, the focus towards which the unifying forces of life will converge, and from which its energizing influences will radiate. A world language will either be invented or chosen from amongst the existing language and will be taught in the schools of all the federated nations as an auxiliary to their mother tongue. Excuse me. A world script, a world literature, a uniform and universal system of currency, weights and measures will simplify and facilitate intercourse and understanding among the nations and the races of mankind. In such a world society, science and religion, the two most potent forces in human life, will reconcile, will cooperate, and will harmoniously develop. The press will, under such a system, while giving full scope to the expressions of the diversified views and convictions of mankind, cease to be mischievously manipulated, be vested interest, whether private or public, and will be liberated from the influence of the contending governments and people. The economic resources of the world will be organized, its sources of raw material will be tapped and fully utilized, its market will be coordinated and developed, and the distribution of its product will be equitably regulated. World Order of Baha'u'llah, page 203 to 204. The Guardian continues. National rivalries, hatreds, and intrigues will cease. Racial animosity and prejudices will be replaced by racial amity, understanding, and cooperations. The cause of the religious strife will be permanently removed. Economic barriers and restrictions will be permanently abolished. Inordinate distinctions will be obliterated. Destitution on one hand and gross accumulations of the ownership on the other will disappear. The enormous energy dissipated and wasted on war, whether economic or political, will be consecrated to such ends as will extend the range of the human interventions and technical development to the increase of the productivity of mankind, to the examinations of disease, to the extensions of scientific research, to the raising of the standards of the physical health, to the sharpening and refinement of human brain, to the exploitations of the unused and unsuspected resources of the planet, to the prolongations of human life, and to the furtherance of any agencies that can stimulate the intellectual, the moral, and the spiritual life of the entire human race. A world federal system ruling the whole earth and exercising unchallengeable authority over its unimaginably vast resources, blending and embodying the ideals both of the East and the West, liberated from the curse of war and its miseries, and bent on the exploitations of all the available sources of energy on the surface of the planet, a system in which force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and by its allegiance to the common revelation. World Order Baha'u'llah, page 204. Observing the remarks of Shoghi Effendi, sketching the salient features of a global design governing the future of the world, with our social evolution now in Western countries such as United States and Canada, we can conclude a great affinity between the divine revelation of God and the social evolution of mankind. This tells us Baha'i Faith has been revealed based on and according to the direct necessities of human beings living in a global village. It is of considerations to pay attention to the fact that the social evolution of mankind that has resulted in creations of the Western countries and even Eastern ones, such as Australia, has directly nothing to do with the Baha'i Faith. Frankly speaking, Baha'i Faith as an ideology did not have any direct link in making of these countries. However, indirect link has been the necessities that mankind has achieved to discover for the foundation of the Western civilization. On the other hand, God has revealed Baha'i Faith for the same necessities that are based on the requirement to continue life on the planet Earth. For example, while mankind struggled to realize the necessity of establishing equality between man and women and the Western world, Baha'i Faith on the other side of the world was revealing the same fact about the equality of man and women, which is one of the fundamental principles of this new religion of God. In the same manner, when the principles of the compulsory education or eradication of all form of prejudice was being revealed, the world system was struggling to establish these fundamental facts based on their necessity of the progress. Perhaps the greatest awareness of mankind and its turning point would be to reach to the consciousness that God, as the Creator, has manifested His care and concern through the Baha'i Faith by revealing these social and spiritual necessities ahead of time, so that mankind would not go through such monumental task for comprehending these vital truths. It is incumbent upon every concerned citizen of this planet to minimize the gap between the Baha'i Faith and governing social structure, so that people, by participating in the Baha'i Faith activities, can make the rest of us to comprehend our destiny foreseen by God ahead of time. Knowing full well the writing of the Baha'i authors can set the criteria by which we can measure our progress in every corner of the world, attempting to be a helping hand to our fellow citizens of the earth. Destructive criticism of governing regimes has resulted in many unnecessary wars and tribulations. The constructive criticism would be therefore to diagnose the problem and propose an alternative solution. Many so-called such critics are criticizing the social structure of the United States, Canada, England, or Germany, etc., and lacking any serious alternative that mankind could seek to achieve, except those reactionist regimes of some Middle Eastern countries. Corruptions of the religions of the past during the course of time has turned their reality into a poisonous system of government that has made literally all the citizens to escape these policies and seek refuge to the Western countries. This is because while the revelation of God is an edible food, once run out of time, it becomes rotten, as if it stayed outside of our refrigerations. Alternatively, one can resemble the revelation of God like a sun of reality that in course of time has exhausted its internal fuel and turned into a black hole that is no longer the source of life but destructions. The modern system has been set the principles of the separation between religion and the state. The atheist approach of the new system have been able to solve the problem caused by the old religion, but at the same time has created a vacancy that has been affecting the heart and the soul of the general population. Therefore, the trend seems to be that the religious system will vanish to evolve democratic regimes that are essentially atheist in nature. I challenge that if statistics taken, a great majority of the Asian, African, South American, and East European citizens are willing to leave their countries to become the citizens of the modern countries like the United States and Canada. In spite of this fact, the politicians of these countries and even their intellectuals fail to comprehend the trend of the evolution. The United States as a superpower and the smaller countries such as Canada and Australia are inevitable course of the social evolution. There is no escape for all the theocratics and dictatorship system but to evolve into this new form of government. However, the ultimate phase of the evolution for the modern system would be to incorporate a new theology in the fabric of their society, a source of inspiration that fulfills all the area that art, technology, science, philosophy, politics, religion, dogma fails politics and the religion dogma fails to fulfill. The chief responsibility of such divine ideology is the restructuring of the family system, which is the spiritual matrix of mankind. Lack of a spiritual system has caused the disruptions of the family system, thereby causing a great number of dysfunctioning individuals in the Western culture. And this is one of the drawbacks of the atheist societies. In the free world, where democracy is the founding principles of the social structure, has allowed the presence of a variety of old and new spiritual dogmas. Adaptations of any of these spiritual beliefs would create conflict between their followers simply because their philosophy is often opposing each other's, thus a great sense of disharmony of their followers. Therefore, their spiritual ideology that can incorporate with the democracy has to be something that can practically unite all the ideas, bringing them into a great accord, much like the sun that is orbiting all the planet into its orbit. much like the sun that bringing all the planets in its orbit, our solar system. The second feature of such a spiritual ideology would have to be democratic in its organization, like the Baha'i Faith, that does not support the clerical system of appointing priest or a spiritual leader, but electing them in the form of the assemblies, local, national, and international level. Such a spiritual ideology that should be incorporated under democratic societies would have to exhibit some sound principles that can guarantee the equality and the right of the man and women and its entire citizen with a reference to their culture, ethnicity, color, race, and other distinguishing factors. It should include a minimum definitions of wealth among its citizens. The spiritual belief should run side by side with the science and technology to eliminate the classical conflict between religion and science. Finally, I'd like to reiterate that we have to be factual. See where the evolution leads and recognize our achievement in a global way and surpass the national borders. In addition, at the same time, increase our knowledge and understanding of the new faith of God and try to close the gap between where we are and where we should go. Very well. It's just about 1 hour I have been reading what I wrote. I think around 1987 it was. Right. Or I was all alone in an apartment that I did not have even a pillow to sleep. I was kicked out by the abandoning wife, whose reason was religion, because I was basically branded as covenant breaker. So, and there was a Canadian girl whose route would be completely different from any intellectual understanding of any sort. But that's the only one I had, and I didn't know how to type. I was walking in the room, and she was typing. And that's how this book was written, which is called the final episode to the Covenant of Baha'u'llah, and this was his last portions. Well, all I can tell you is this. Do not take any of these quotations of the Shoghi Effendi as some kind of ideology that you heard, compared it with anybody else. Take it as an absolute truth, and try to dig into it, like some of the lawyers dig into the Constitution of the United States, trying to find and elaborate and get fact out. The same way, you have to study this word of Shoghi Effendi, the quotations I gave you, one word by word, to understand that the faith and national spiritual assemblies are not the government. And the universal government, he basically calls it a commonwealth. So it's very, very important. A huge study is necessary to understand it. I think I understood, barely few points that I wrote my understanding for you. But at the end of the day, I am a practical person. The world is full of ideas right now, And as he says, only we Baha'is, we can do it. Even anything else that will be done will be nothing but a lesser peace. In the Baha'i Faith, there's lesser peace, there's greater peace. Mankind might create some kind of a convoluted system, federal, universal system, where the whole world becomes like the United States of America. Too bad, because there are stress, there's still bankruptcy, there's still prostitution, there's still cheating, there's still all kind of things. This is not a world that we like to live in, or we can't live in it for not too long, and it will have to be changed. And the change in such society, if there is no Baha'i Faith, it will be reactionism. Then people say that, you know, the whole thing that we made is a mistake. We have to go back to cave where we came from. Get rid of all the technologies and everything else. That's what some people do. But the way forward, Shoghi Effendi is the Baha'i Faith. You have to understand what he says. It's very difficult. I take his words, how do I tell you, like an absolute manual that I have a big chunk in front of me of all pieces, and I have to follow this manual in order to assemble this device that I just bought, whether it's a TV or as anything. The same way, everything that he says is all of it has to be understood, and it's basically a manufacturer's, you know, words how to assemble this disassembled world, how to put it together. That is the instruction. That's my understanding of it. But that's my understanding. You simply have to add yours to it. But as I said, I'm a practical person. Okay, all these ideologies are there, people hear it, and this and that and that and that. What do we do about it? Is what I told you in the previous video. We have to get together and start doing it. It has to start from one place, that's Canada. I prefer Saskatchewan. I prefer the Baha'is to come together. I will send a copy of all of this to Universal Laws of Justice. For the last time, I will appeal to them to let me get engaged in this before I die. Next 10-15 years, we can start this in one country to bring it up. And it has to be definitely under the system, not under the individual. This system is the Universal Laws of Justice in the world and the National Spiritual Assembly of Canada in Canada. These two have to be completely behind it. Everyone has to be registered under this institution. Any single person who wants to lead it is very dangerous for that person and for the faith of God. If I have done something, God knows, 50 years ago, if I installed an eavesdrop that's one screw is missing, if people, they know I am the boss and I'm running the show, they will come to attack me to bring me down. Therefore, no man can be the in charge of this essentially teaching. I would have asked, if Universal Laws of Justice give me the opportunity, I would have asked Mr. Muhammad Ali Ghambari from India to come and help me, Consular Borhanuddin Afshin to come to be my assistant. I would have asked Ahmad Tawhidi from Vancouver to come and help. I would definitely ask Vincent Twardzik to come down here and to sit down to see what we can do. And we become some kind of a committee running this show and a liaison to the Universal Laws of Justice in Canada. All the effort have to be put in one place to get it done. So this is essentially my last video, but I will have an epilogue, another one coming to make these videos 153. Then I'm ending this project, but since there's nothing else to do, and there are some other few things that I think that has to be done. One of them is that I will be teaching the Persian language to the best of my ability, at least open a way for you that if you have to know the meaning of some word or something, that how you could approach the books in Persian books and try to find those words to know what it means. And because it's the language of the faith of God, many scholars, they might want to get into it. Secondly, I will translate one of the greatest mystical work of God ever been revealed by Baha'u'llah, the top of the line. There's nothing beyond that, which Baha'u'llah have written it in a form of poetry. And it's not seven valleys or the fourth valleys, that's for the Islamic things. This is the Baha'i way of understanding things. I like to translate that based on the words and translations of Shoghi Effendi for you. These are the two bonuses that I will do. After that, I will leave it to God to see what He wants to say, what He wants me to do. May Baha'u'llah be with you. All the things that I've told you, please, I've given you the page number. Just go see if there is some mistake in typing or something. So you know those pages from what I told you and what this book is in there, to check it for yourself, okay? May Baha'u'llah be with you.